Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kendra. And this is my YouTube channel where I talk about, I need to close this. So let's talk about what I made in April. I also attended Yarncon, which is a fiber festival here in Chicago. So I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end. Are my glasses dirty? Like, can you see how dirty my glasses are? The first finished object that I'll talk about is what I'm wearing. It is wrinkled because it was folded in the closet, but this is my Rift by Jacqueline Cieslak. It is a bottom up, mostly stockinette, V-neck top. This pattern is cool because it has modifications to make long and short sleeve, as well as a boat neck and a V-neck, and you can swap between that being in the front or back. You can adjust the length of the hem. So there's a lot of personalization written into the pattern itself. And this is the third time I've knit the pattern, and each one I've made has been different. So this is the first long sleeve one that I made. Yeah, I finished this the day I recorded my March video. So this has been a finished object pretty much the entirety of the month of April, and I've worn it a decent amount of time. There is some pilling here. The yarn I'm using is a Mono Awa, which is a cotton alpaca merino blend yarn. Yeah, alpaca, merino, and cotton. I don't know what the ratios are, but those are the three fibers in this yarn. And it's a sport weight. Yeah, I talked more at length about the modifications and everything. Again, this was basically finished when I recorded my last video. So I was probably to this point in the second sleeve. So I'll spare you all of the details if you want to know all of the specifics about the modifications I made and some of the changes that I implemented in this project. Pop over to that video. Everything is time stamped. But a couple of things I wanted to add. First of all, I knit the size 4 and I used a total of 863 yards. And I guess I'll just share a little bit about my thoughts on the finished object. I love it. It's light and airy. I really think that this yarn is a really good match for this pattern. It's a sport weight, but it's knit up at a really loose gauge. So it's very breathable, drapey, airy. I can't say enough about the fabric itself. One thing I'm realizing about the Rift, now that this is the third time I've made it, I'm not a huge fan of the neckline. So all three versions that I've made have been the V-neck. And one thing that stands out to me is that it's just very wide. It's a very wide but shallow V-neck. And I'm happy with the depth of the V-neck, but I wish that it came in a little bit closer on my shoulders. So there is no bra or tank top or strap of any kind that is safe from being exposed in this top. And that irks me, but it is what it is. So there's no getting away from a little bit of whatever I'm wearing underneath just peeking through because this V-neck is so wide. And I'm realizing now that it kind of bothers me. There are some things I can do to bring it in a little bit. Maybe I can add some ribbing, or maybe I can go in with a crochet hook, rip out the single crochet I did around the edge and do something with a smaller hook, or with the intent of pulling it in a little bit. But I don't know if I'll do that. I mean, I don't find it unwearable, but if there is anything about this pattern that annoys me, that's the thing. So other than that, really happy with how it turned out. I've worn it several times. I've worn it to work once, and very comfortable, easy to throw on, easy to style. I have mostly positive things to say about it. I just wish that the neck wasn't so wide. And maybe that's something I can address in terms of a modification if I ever make this pattern again. Or maybe I can seek out patterns that have a V-neck that is a bit more narrow. So yeah, that is my Rift. The next project I'll share is my sock that I knit for the month of April. This I had already cast on in my last video, so you saw this as a whip. Now it's technically a half finished object. I won't talk about it too much because it's really just a vanilla sock, but it is knit up using some really cool self-striping yarn. And I believe it's a 4 ply, and one of the plies is black and the other ply is the color that automatically sort of creates this striped pattern. I knit this cuff down, 72 stitches on a 2.25 millimeter needle, and I did a slip stitch heel flap, and that's really it. For vanilla socks, I always follow the So Basic sock pattern by Summerly Knits, and that's what I did here. And this pattern or this project is going to be a gift for my uncle. I was knitting this up on Easter Sunday and I was at his house with the rest of my family, and I just sort of spontaneously decided that this would be a gift for him. Initially this were gonna be for me, but I decided to knit them for him, and he is what would equate to a half a size bigger feet than I have. So I just added, I think, 5 rounds to the foot, and I'm pretty confident that these are gonna fit him pretty well. So I'm happy to gift these, and I'm gonna be casting on the second sock tomorrow, which is Tuesday, on my commute to work. These will definitely be a finished pair of socks in my next monthly video. I can't believe I almost forgot to mention it. This deserves a video all on its own. This is it the field bag or the, I don't know. It's a pattern kit something or other. I don't sew, so I don't keep up with sewing trends or designers or companies or pattern publishers. This is all very new territory for me. But my friend Felicia knit this bag for me for my birthday. That was over 2 months ago now, but better late than never. It's so good. I mean, just before filming this video, it had my entire Ward sweater whip plus the 3 remaining balls of yarn, and it has pockets on the outside and pockets on the inside. It has this really cute drawstring. It's a very sturdy canvas material. The straps are really sturdy and nice. And what did I do to deserve a friend like Felicia? I don't know, but I'm not gonna jinx it. Anyway, let's talk about the project that is in the project bag that I just gushed about. Oh, never mind, that's a whip. The next finished object I have to share is the first time I'm talking about it on this channel, because at the time I filmed my last video, this was not even cast on. So I started and completed this entirely in April. And this is the Daybreak Sweater Tee by Taylor Ann Knits, Taylor Harris of Taylor Ann Knits. And here it is. Oh my gosh. That color blocking is super obvious on the screen. Oh man, that's not ideal, but what can you do? So the glaring issue that you can probably tell is that we have a bit of a dye lot discrepancy, you know? I didn't notice that. I pretty much exclusively knit in the dark in the evenings after work. I don't typically knit in well-lit areas, so this is not something that I really noticed until I was almost done with the project entirely, and by then I wasn't going to do anything to change it. I wasn't really interested in alternating skeins, and I don't think that the color difference is super obvious. I mean, not, yeah. I can live with it. I can definitely live with it, especially because it's mostly symmetrical. Like, it's just this band of lighter blue that's kind of sitting right in the middle of the project. So we'll just lie and say it was intentional. So while that was mildly disappointing, it doesn't change how much I like this, and I don't think it looks awful. So I'm gonna live with it. Your mileage may vary, but here we are. This is what I'm gonna do. It is a bottom up DK weight short sleeve sweater with drop shoulders. You know, now that I think about it, every sweater I've worked on in 2023 so far has been drop shoulder. So maybe that's the theme for this year. I don't know, but yeah, bottom up drop shoulder. Pretty simple texture throughout, alternating between stockinette and evenly spaced out pearl rows. It is trimmed in 2x2 rib at the cuffs of the sleeve and at the neck. And at the bottom here, I didn't do a special cast on, I just did a German twisted cast on. And the showstopper, if you will, is here at the back. There is a button placket at the back that I have modified to be a fake button placket, so it is not a functioning button band that I can button and unbutton. There's no technical need for an element like that in a garment, but I understand the decorative element, so I still knit it, and I will sew on some buttons, most likely. If I'm not lazy, I'll sew on some buttons so that you get the effect of the button band without me having to knit this button band twice and tack it down twice here at the bottom where it meets the rest of the body. And I think it looks pretty clean. I feel like you can definitely tell that it's not a real button band if you look at it long enough, but no, hopefully no one is going to be looking at my back that long. That's just weird, generally speaking. And yeah, this is how it turned out. So here's a closer look, and yes, I hope that doesn't bother you too much. The fabric is really drapey. I think it's a really nice amount of positive ease on me. Here's my belly button. So it's kind of cropped, but not too cropped. Here's how the neckline looks on. I really like the way the neckline turned out. I don't think it's too wide or too narrow. I think it's just right. I don't have the best luck with necklines. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's like my knitting Achilles heel. I can never get it right. So I'm really happy with how this one turned out. I used Blue Sky Fibers Skyland, which is a DK yarn. 40% Highland wool, 30% baby alpaca, and 30% silk. And I think that alpaca and silk is why this fabric is so drapey and comfortable. And I knit the size 3, and I used 966 yards in total on this. So in terms of modification, I already mentioned one. I did a fake button placket at the back here. So the pattern as written has this button placket, but it's a functioning button placket where you knit one side and then you knit the other side with the button holes, and then you sew the buttons onto the first side, and you know how buttons work, right? Anyway, what I did was I pick up the stitches, knit the button placket, and then I bound off the stitches while simultaneously tacking it down to the other side. So similar to what you would do for a folded neckline, like a fold over collar. I did that same thing here. And so then at the end, all I had to do was seam down this bottom section. And then that way I only had to knit one of the two sides, and I don't have to worry about making sure that I make the buttonholes in the right places and that my buttons that I choose fit the buttonholes properly, so it's not always coming undone, which is always something that you risk. I don't recall that the pattern specifies the appropriate size of button to use. So I figured overall it would just be a safer bet to do a fake button placket at the back, and then I can go back and seam on buttons whatever kind of buttons I want here. So that's a modification I did. The other modification was that, so for the ribbing on, all of the ribbing in this pattern is knit in the same needle size as the main fabric. I sized down a needle when knitting the neck only, just because I didn't want to risk it stretching out and being all wonky. I feel like cotton and alpaca blend yarns don't have any type of memory, so they'll stretch out and they won't bounce back, and I didn't want to encourage it to do that. So I just went down two needle sizes just for the neck, but the other ribbing throughout the pattern is in the same needle size as the main fabric. So that is my Daybreak Sweater Tee. We're very happy with it, despite the dye lot issue. I think I'm gonna wear this to work tomorrow. Why not? All right, the last project I'll talk about is living in my town bag. Is it the town bag? I think it's the town bag. And in this project bag lies my ward sweater. So you may or may not recall in last month's video, I said that I plan to finish this in April. I did not. But I did make some good progress. I would say a majority of the month, I wasn't really working on this. I kind of dedicated the time to the Daybreak. And I took the entire time I was knitting through the Daybreak, I was not knitting on board. So I just figured in terms of wearability, there was definitely a higher chance of me being able to wear this before the weather truly breaks for summer, then I would have to wear a worsted weight non-superwash wool sweater that's extremely oversized and moderately cabled. So that was an intentional strategic decision on my part, and I have no regrets. So what do we have here? We have a wearable item. So this sweater is seamed. You knit the front and the back panels, and you seam it together, and you pick up and knit the sleeves and the collar. So first of all, it's huge. I think we can all agree that it is massive. I don't know how this compares to the schematics of the pattern itself. I know I met gauge, and when I blocked it, you kind of have to stretch it out when you have cables because the cables kind of suck in. But I'm wondering if I stretched it too aggressively. I don't know. I didn't refer to the dimensions of the finished garment when I was blocking. I kind of just block on vibes. So yeah, it was alarmingly large. I was really surprised. So we'll see how this fits in the end. I did try it on at one point. The shoulder kind of stops at where I would expect it to based on the other pictures that I've seen, especially the sample pictures. So I think I'm on track, but it was just a lot roomier than I was anticipating. But I don't think it's a bad thing. I think I have enough yarn to complete it. So we'll see, we'll see. It was just alarmingly big. I mean, it nearly takes up the entire screen. It's huge. I seamed the shoulders using a 3-needle bind off, and then I just used the mattress stitch to seam up the sides, and then I picked up stitches along the side to knit the sleeve in the round. This is different than how the pattern is written. The pattern is written for you to seam the shoulder, not seam the body, but instead pick up stitches flat along the arm and knit the sleeve flat and then seam up the sleeve and the body at the end. But I just decided to knit the sleeve in the round because that just makes more sense to me and it feels like less work. So that's what I'm doing. Yeah, not much to say here. I've talked about this now probably every video I've made this year, so I'm not going to talk about it too much. Just know that it is still in progress. I am still chipping away at it, and maybe in May it'll be complete. But yes, Ward Sweater by Sloan Rosenthal. She cute, she cute. She's huge, but she's cute. I do not have any yarn acquisitions. The no buy is still going strong. However, I did attend a fiber festival and I didn't buy anything. So I attended Yarncon on April 2nd and it was cute. I ran into Michael from Piece for Piece Crafting, Akia from Dr. Charlie Untangled. I recognized a few people there, but I didn't buy anything. What? I think there are a few reasons I didn't buy anything at Yarncon. And let's talk about it. I did buy some French fries at one of the food trucks outside of the venue. A majority of the vendors at Yarncon were hand dyers. I have nothing against hand dyers, but for reasons I've talked about before, I don't tend to gravitate towards hand dyed yarn for my projects, specifically garments. For socks, it's a totally different story. I'm game to knit socks in hand dyed yarn, but I don't feel particularly inspired to knit garments out of hand dyed yarn. There was an abundance of hand dyed yarn that didn't really speak to me, not only because it was hand dyed and I don't like knitting garments in hand dyed, but also because there was a lot of strong, vibrant, beautiful, but very, very loud colors that are just not my cup of tea. So yeah, nothing really jumped out that I wanted to buy. On top of that, I feel like of all of the hand dyers that were there, which I would say is a majority of the vendors that were there, most of them were primarily stocking superwash, which is also not my thing. So maybe I'm just not the target audience for Yarncon, but I didn't feel particularly inspired. I was walking through there. Add to that the fact that obviously I'm on a yarn no buy, and while fiber festivals, and I would consider Yarncon to be a fiber festival, while fiber festivals are one of the exceptions that I would allow myself to acquire yarn, I kind of just I wasn't feeling it going in. And so, you know, usually when I buy yarn or go somewhere that will have yarn that I may or may not buy, I sort of come in with a list of a handful of patterns that I want to knit, and then I will focus my search to find yarn to make those patterns. I had no such list going in. And in the past, that means that I kind of buy irresponsibly. I'll buy a sweater quantity here, or maybe I'll make a hat with that in the future. And no strategy, no intention behind what I was doing. And I oftentimes leave those events with yarn that, while it felt good in the moment, maybe I didn't buy enough for what I wanted to make, or I changed my mind, or was super impulsive and I have buyer's remorse. So I wanted to avoid all of that. So yeah, there was just a lot internally that resulted in me not buying yarn there, as well as, you know, the type of offerings that they had. I just didn't think they really spoke to me. So I feel like those internal and external factors played into me not buying yarn when I was there. What I did sort of go in thinking I may or may not purchase while there was project bags and other notions that aren't exactly yarns. And there were several booths that sold those types of things. But again, I was just vibing. You know, I was just walking around looking at the things to look at and saying hi to a couple of people that I recognized. I didn't buy anything. I am also in disbelief, which is kind of why I'm like, yeah, the one booth that almost got me was Maybe a Yarn. I made the Gruggle Cow by Kate Davies. I think that was in my January or February video. February. With their yarn, gorgeous yarn. I was incredibly tempted, but I ultimately decided not to buy anything. And you know what? I left Yarncon not feeling disappointed at the selection or discouraged because I didn't find anything for me, but really like light and relieved that I had attended a yarn event and I didn't force myself to buy anything. Nor did I feel tempted to buy anything. I was perfectly content walking out empty-handed. And Kendra from a year ago, unheard of. Unheard of. So I think this is growth and I love this for us. So that is everything I knit and did in April. Let's do a quick tally of where I'm at with the stash down or no buy. So in the month of April, I used 1,829 yards. So that is the total yardage and the finished objects that I completed in April. I didn't acquire any yarn. So my year-to-date total so far is that I have used up 5,127 yards from my stash, and I've acquired 857 yards in total, which means that my net impact is 4,270 yards used. Yay! Thank you so much for watching and sticking it out with me. We are month 4 going strong on the no buy for 2023, and I am really happy to be working through my stash, making some beautiful things, and connecting with you guys along the way. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!